Hi everyone, hope you're having a good day. Today we're going to go through an overview of a gold demonstration dataset that we have for Max here. Just to take you through some of the primary features of Max, not all the features, we won't be able to cover all that, but it's really just to give you a bit of a taste flavor for Max and some of the primary features that it does have. All the data that I'm going to show you is all made up, manufactured, in some cases nonsensical, because we're really focusing on the workflow that we've got here. So let's get started. Start off with when you log into Max, you're presented with the sitemap, and the whole idea of the sitemap is to provide some sort of context to the overall setup of Max. Now, obviously, anyone that's been on site for a long time, they know their layout. This really gives external people a clear sense of what the setup is. And so from this sitemap, we can drill down into specific areas of the plant, measure points and so forth, and start interrogating the data straight away. The overall configuration that sits behind this, though, is really based on what we call the plant hierarchy. So if we go over here, we'll navigate down into the plant hierarchy, and it gives us more of a tree view of the overall plant, breaking it down into its specific areas. So we have a pretty classical structure here, with starting with our grinding and our crushing. And you can see as we expand each node here, we can drill down into specific areas. I can then click on a specific measure point, and we can start seeing specific values that have been collected against this measure point, and any kind of historical information. At the moment, I haven't got any information in here. We'll go through that in terms of our workflow in just a tick. In terms of our configuration, we don't want to get too bogged down with that right now, but just to give you an idea of how we actually set up all the calculations and the data capture, really it comes down to what we call custom fields. So I'll just show you here. We have, in terms of just straight out measured numerical values, obviously we've got a gold grade here. We also track specifically ounces in certain places, tonnage, and everything like that. So these are purely our measured values. Then from there we have our derived values. So we define them according to formulas. And so we can calculate, say, dry tons from our wet tons of moisture, and you can see here how we would express that. So we express it in terms of a custom field and a measure point, and then bring it together to calculate our dry tons. So all the formulas are quite transparent, but also very readable and easy to understand, as opposed to if you were doing this, say, in Excel, which would all be a pile of cell references. So let's bring some data in. There are two primary ways of bringing data into Max. You can do it through a manual worksheet data entry, or we can bring it in via file imports. And the file imports are all configured based on the types of files that a particular site might be dealing with. While everyone likes the idea of automated imports, in practice, there's always going to be some level of manual data entry, purely because there's lack of IT infrastructure to support the automation, or maybe that data just simply doesn't reside in any other system. A good example might be some blends or any other kind of attribute that's not actually measured via some instrumentation. So depending on the site setup, we might have a little bit of worksheets and a little bit of file imports, say from the lab or however it goes. For this purpose, I'm going to import a whole pile of data just purely via file import. So I'll go to file import, import our data. I've got this here. We can preview the data that we're bringing in. So all looks good. So we then create a file import session, and you can see that it's imported by me, and the date, the file name, and so forth. And if I click down in this, I can see all the different values, data that has been pulled in from this worksheet. Now, just to, I guess, show you how this file just looked, I'll just show you here. I'll open it back up in Excel. And this is the kind of structure that we're dealing with here. So we've got dates, with rows being maybe day shift, night shift, and all our different measures like this. And this is kind of a typical file that we would be dealing with if we were setting up a client from the get-go, where all the data is being pushed into a particular spreadsheet. So we obviously imported that pretty quickly, and straight away we can actually start reviewing some of the data. So we would tend to set up various dashboards that are going to help you validate things. So we've just got a simple data audit dashboard here. We can filter this on a particular time range. We've got all our different measures across by column. Now, just to demonstrate sort of how this validation process might work, we can narrow this down, and straight away we can see, okay, it's flagged that there's some data missing here. What we're trying to do here is separate senior people, senior metallurgists, and that from entering the data and focusing on viewing the data. So they can assume the data's been put in, they can just come in and look at the data validation through dashboards, and they can start asking some particular questions. So from here, we are already ready to generate a report. So the report definition has been set up. So I'm just going to go straight down here to reports, generate a report. We've just got some daily reports set up for this demonstration, and our data was sitting in January. So let's just choose the middle of the month, and I'll create all our reports. So obviously at this step, we're assuming all the data has come in. And so in a typical process, really you would have some data coming in maybe in the morning, some in the afternoon, some via worksheets, some via file imports. So once that's all been collected and everyone's happy, we can come straight to this report generation. So you can see here we've generated a series of reports for this particular day. We'll go straight into the daily production summary. And this is a pretty stereotypical kind of layout where we have various rows here relating to areas of the plant. We have a grouping of columns here for the daily, day versus budget, and then our month to date figures there. We can sort of scroll through. This is just a simple report, 2 pages. But we might just go and quickly show you a couple of the other reports here, which are more specific to specific parts of the plant. So this one here is focusing on the grinding area. You can see we've got a nice little chart there with some extra aesthetics. Obviously, in our daily report, we're missing some of the budget and forecast figures. So they're brought in from a file import as well. So it's pretty typical for budget figures and forecast figures to be generated in some sort of spreadsheet, and we just import them. It's a pretty straightforward process, just like what I showed you. So we go to budget values. We'll import, say, some forecast figures from a spreadsheet. And again, we configure this all up depending on the structure of spreadsheet that you are working with. We'll also import, say, our monthly base budget values. And so we've brought all these KPI values in. We can do a bit of analysis on it through our dashboarding, just like we can with all our other raw data. Let's go to our report, daily report, and refresh that with some budget and forecast figures. So there we go. That's all come in and looking pretty good. So look, that's your really brief overview of taking us from getting data in to generating a report. Obviously, it's all based around the configuration that we originally set up, all the formulas and custom fields that I mentioned at the start, and of course also the import definitions. But once all that's set up, the reporting is very simple, and it's also very easy for us to modify and add extra parts to this report, whether it's charts or anything to that you need. There you go. Hope you found that enjoyable and interesting, and we'll see you next time.